Oh my goodness. Welcome everybody today. Welcome to RootsTech. We are talking all about connecting. And I'm so excited to be a part of a conversation with my colleague and dear, dear friend, Mike Sandberg, and his sister, Rebecca. And they're going to talk to us about a reunion they did in 2020. So we're going to learn all the secrets on how to involve everybody in the family. And they're going to tell us what worked, what didn't work, and maybe we're going to get some fun stories along the way. So welcome, you guys. We're so happy you're here. Can you tell us, Mike, introduce yourself, and then Rebecca, introduce yourself.
Mike Sandberg, like Wendy said, I work at FamilySearch. I have the best job in the world. I love what we do here, connecting families through story and family history and trees. And today we're going to talk about connecting the living family right now, doing that through memory and shared experiences. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, Rebecca.
Yeah, I'm Rebecca. I'm in New Jersey and I'm a mother of 3. I'm also in a grad program for social work. And I was really excited to do this reunion last summer just because I'm on the other side of the coast from most of my family. And it was a way to connect during the pandemic. So we're excited to talk about it.
Okay. So this is great. You guys are going to tell us all the secrets, but give us an understanding. Is this something that your family has done for a long time? And do you typically do it in person? Tell us a little bit about the reunion and how it used to be.
So yeah, my family has a long tradition with my dad's siblings of every 2 years, we all get together in the same place and we invite everyone in to participate in that from all over the country. And so this year we were faced with this question of, well, we were planning on doing that. We had a date set, we had a place set, and then the pandemic hit, right? So like, how do we do this? And we're like, should we cancel? And that's when Becky showed up to save the day.
Yes. So why did you decide to keep going? Tell us the story there.
Yeah. So this summer I was in charge of helping to plan a youth camp for girls between the ages of 11 and 18.
Okay.
And same thing, we were going to cancel it. And then I just thought, you know what, these youth really need to connect. So we went forward with it and I had a great team and it was a huge success. It was a 3-day camp. And so when my family heard that I had done that, my dad, who was in charge of the reunion, called me and said, would you be willing to help us do this virtually? And I was like, yeah, we could do that. Okay, sure. Why not? And instead of a 3-day thing, we just went with a 1-day thing and, tried to simplify as much as we could to help people want to come and be involved. So,
okay. So you did this with all of your siblings and then your dad and his siblings. And then how many people are we talking and how many generations?
We had like the grandparents, us sibling cousins, as well as all of our children. And in the end, we had about 80 people come online.
Okay.
Ages like toddlers through 70s.
Okay.
A couple great grandchildren in there, but they obviously didn't participate. They're just
babies. Yeah.
How did you communicate with everybody? I mean, you talked about 80 people. What did you do to communicate with everyone?
Yeah. So one of the things I had seen when some of our research went last year, and we talked about this board, was the value of the family group chat, right? So we actually set up a family reunion group chat on WhatsApp. And we invited everyone into that. And one of the other things Becky suggested was we created a little Zoom registration, or not Zoom, a Google registration form.
Okay.
People could get their contact information, their phone number, their email address. And then we use that to gather everything so we could send out a Zoom meeting, we could set up a WhatsApp group and all these things. Once we had done that, we set up this WhatsApp chat, and that's where we just started pumping information out to get them excited.
Okay, now I have to just jump in here and talk about WhatsApp because, as Mike mentioned, we've worked on a couple projects together where we were traveling to understand how families connect. And a lot of these things that have been learned will be shared in the Getting Started Connect track. So make sure you catch all of those. Tell us a little bit about why WhatsApp, like for people who aren't familiar with it, like what's the benefit of it?
Becky, do you want to say I pulled you guys into it. What do you want to talk about? What you've seen the benefit there?
So you can include videos, you can include photos, you can. I'm not very techie, but I don't think it requires data. Is that right?
It's minimal.
It's minimal data, right?
It's because so I feel like it's widely available to people of all kind of socioeconomic standards of living,
Android
and foreign as well. Like people living foreign versus local in the US, like you can connect with people in other countries also. So that's the advantage of WhatsApp.
It's super, super easy to use. I mean, we got our parents on it. We got our aunts and uncles who are, again, older. Right? And getting them into it, there was a little bit of a learning curve sometimes, but once everyone was in it, it was so easy. It was just so easy to communicate, right? And push stuff out. And we got a lot of activity just on the WhatsApp chat. The other thing I liked about the WhatsApp chat was that for people that couldn't actually be there and dial into the Zoom meeting, we were pushing stuff out on the chat so they could still follow throughout the day different things that were going on to feel like they were included.
What did the actual reunion day look like? And I know that you're going to have a handout with your sort of schedule or your itinerary, but tell us just a little bit, Rebecca, how you decided what activities to include. And then I want you guys to talk about what surprised you that worked and maybe what failed.
Sure. So we started with everyone together on the Zoom call, and we had kind of we'd given out some options for workshops that they could sign up for. And we wanted to include, again, all ages. So we had some kind of teenage games, and we had toddler children music time class, for example. And then we had like a family history class, and just kind of something to appeal to everybody. And so we met all together, and then we did breakout rooms, and we wanted kind of smaller groups so people could connect on a more personal level, have more discussion. And then once in a while, we'd bring everybody together again. And so we did that a couple of times throughout the day. And we also made sure to give people a long lunch break and also little breaks in between the two workshops, because we didn't want people to, get too tired sitting in front of a computer. So I think those elements really helped to break up the day in that way. What time of day did we end? I can't even remember, like 3?
I think formally we ended at 3, but then we did.
I think it was 3-ish. And again, we had that lunch break too for like several hours where they were able to, again, during that lunch break, we had a couple activities they could do during lunch to send in photos or whatever on the WhatsApp. So it kind of kept them engaged, or they could go to lunch with people in the family if they wanted to. But anyways, it was a good short day, but still felt like we got a lot done and in a lot of ways to connect.
And what was like the ultimate goal of doing all of this? Was it to entertain each other? Was it, to showcase people and kind of what they're doing with their life? Update?
So we always have an element to our reunions of kind of, what have you been up to the last 2 years? And it's usually conversational, but this year, because of the pandemic and having to do things virtually, we added the element of making a family slideshow, and we gave them a time limit. And so they only had 5 minutes per family. There's 6 different families, but it turned out so cute. And everybody had all these photos from the last 2 years of their lives that they showed. And I was like, why have we never done this in the past? But it was so good to get visuals, not just talking about what they'd done, but see the pictures of what they'd been doing. It was a really, really fun way to start the reunion.
I can show a sample of that, Wendy, just a couple slides. Give you a taste of that.
I would love that. And what's interesting as you're talking, Rebecca, this is like they're creating their own like sort of yearbook almost. And if you put them all together, did you record the reunion?
We did. And so then we were able to share it afterwards again for people who couldn't make it. And several of our relatives were like, hey, I want to see what we already did. So it was really fun to be able to have it recorded so we can go back and watch it again too.
Oh my goodness.
Let me make this a little bigger. But this was just a slideshow that my dad's family, so my dad, all my brothers and sisters put together. And started off with just the opening slide, David and Marie family report. And then each of the children, my dad and mom had some slides that showed their stuff, things that they were, highlighting for the year. Then we had things like, here's what we did for the reunion, right? Our reunion plan.
This is great.
We did, right? And
we had a lot of reunion planning meetings.
Yeah, lots of reunion plannings with just mom and dad. And then my family, we had some slides in here. And Becky, I really liked what she did because she involved her teenage daughter doing her slides. Want to talk about that, Becky?
Yeah, no, so one of my personal goals of the reunion was to include our youth as much as possible and to get them excited about being with their extended relatives. So we did things like this where the teenagers were helping put together the slideshows, and they put fun music to it. And, so that was a fun way to include teenagers. They also helped to think of the games that teenagers might like. So, there was ways to include them, and it ended up, they were engaged. They liked it. It was fun.
This is great. Look at the toilet paper. I love it.
I really like this because it just gave everyone kind of a taste of things that
flavor
in other families' lives. And again, we limited it to 5 minutes per clan, right? So that's a lot of people.
Parameters are important.
Right? Yeah. And so you had 5 minutes to show your slides and then 5 minutes Q&A from the larger group back to that family, like, what about this? What about this?
Mhm.
Because there were 6 families, that ended up eating up a whole hour of just
Yeah.
kind of show and tell. Here's what's been going on
Updates.
in families.
And
Okay.
the really important element of that is we use the chat. So during the video, if they thought of questions, we were like, type your questions in the chat, and then we can answer them after the video is done. And that was really helpful to me.
I like that because I think that it allows people to participate in multiple ways, which, you know, can be a good thing. Okay, so what surprised you? Like, what surprised you that worked really well? And then what didn't work well? So let's go with what surprised you first. We'll go to you, Mike.
So when Becky, you know, I've never been a big fan of family talent shows. I'm always like, it's embarrassing, and you know,
Like,
I've always been the kind of person that's like, I don't want to do that. I'm sitting out, right? So, but
Not me. I'm like the performer. Woohoo!
Becky's the performer, right? So anyway, when she's like, we're going to do a family talent show, I was like, oh brother, really? What's that going to be like? And we said, anyone can submit any kind of talent you want, right? And Becky, we had all kinds of stuff come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had, you know, lip sync videos. We had acrobatics. We had people playing instruments.
We had like silly tricks, like people throwing like a marshmallow, like, I'm not kidding, like 30 feet in the air and then catching it, and you know, and doing funny things like that.
Just so, and it was all people submitted this stuff ahead of time. So they did record it. We put it all into one video and then we just played it, right? And I was like, okay, I wasn't really sure what to expect out of it. For me, it was one of the highlights of the reunion.
Really? Can you give us an example? Is there anything you can show that give us sort of a sense? So you went into it dreading, like having this, and then you were so surprised because the entertainment factor, maybe.
I got permission to share one of these clips from one of the families because it was, I think, one of the funniest things out there. There were 2 videos kind of like this, but let me share this one.
While he's pulling that one up. Okay, no, here we go. Oh, I can already tell this is awesome.
So this was a family that was doing a lip sync to a High School Musical. I'm not going to play the music because I want to talk over it. But Becky, you know the backstory here, actually. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you have to keep in mind, this was right kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, right? And so this was their daughter's way of celebrating her high school graduation, because they didn't have it live, right? Everything was virtual for her graduation. So her parents and siblings went all out and just did something silly. And then
what's with the submarine?
We have no idea. It was like so random, right? And you could tell the chat was going nuts during the reunion of this time because we were just like, what are we watching here, right? It's just so crazy. It was just so nuts, right?
Oh, and you know what? I think that this is a win because I suspect if they were in person, they may not have been as like full on into it, right?
That's a good point. I'm telling you, there are good things about this.
That's a win. Okay, well, that was gold. Whoever that family was, they're awesome. And they obviously have fantastic costumes. Rebecca, what was the surprise for you?
Just, you know, in general, just learning more and more like what is possible over Zoom and virtually, and really like how you really can connect with people in personal and real ways. And we don't need to be afraid of it. I think that's what I've learned the most.
And it's interesting when you say that, because this whole track is all about connection and facilitating connection, the importance of connection. There's so much science. We have a professor that talks about, you know, the loneliness pandemic or whatever, loneliness crisis, right? So connection is critical. And I love that as a family, you said, we are not going to give up. Right. Not only are we not going to give up, we're going to show up in full color. And I am wearing a rainbow on my head and I'm holding a blow dryer and I am full on. And I absolutely love the energy and the effort behind that. And I want to talk about what didn't work. And then I want to understand maybe some of the outcomes of this and, you know, really to understand. So you did this, like, that's super cool and great. And you like talent shows now, Mike, but first let's go to what didn't work.
So I think, you know, in the beginning, we were kind of stuck in the physical reunion paradigm where you kind of get together early and you do all your meals together, and then you're staying late till in the evening and doing dinner together. And so we were like really trying, in the beginning, we had like this full schedule, right? And the way it works in our family is every 2 years, a different sibling takes control, like is in charge, right? So this year it was my dad's family's turn to do it. And so when we were trying to do these virtual, we were doing Zoom meetings to do all this planning. And like, there were times there where I think we were all going a little crazy, just like, how is this going to work? We were overscheduled. At one point, someone was like, we have too much. We've got to jettison. We've got to stop. And Becky had invested so much time in building out this very detailed, just amazing schedule, but we saw it was going to be too much. So we just, said, no, let's start cutting stuff. And we just cut things. And some of that stuff we put online for later that people could go back and look. But we just said, no, the important thing is that people have just these quick power punch moments and then let them, and really the goal is to help them connect. So we focused on, we threw out activities that weren't connecting, like let's look at old family movies. We threw that out. We focused on the kinds of things where people could really feel connected to each other in the present.
Okay, Rebecca, what would you say was a learning?
So I think anytime you're going to do something using technology, you have to be able to roll with it when things don't go as planned. Yes. So after lunch, my breakout rooms didn't work. I had put everybody in their assigned breakout rooms and it didn't work. And so you just have to, I tried to keep it positive. I was like, okay, it's all right. We're going to get this done. And I was very quickly able to put people where they're supposed to go and assign them to their different rooms they wanted to go to. But again, I think you just have to be prepared that technology is technology. It's not always
flexible
for us. And so we have to just roll with it and be positive. And we did try to think about ahead of time, okay, what can we, because again, people were still just starting to learn Zoom and how to use it and the different little reactions you can use and how to use a chat and what's good etiquette on Zoom and things. So we kind of went over that with them in the beginning and gave them some tips.
I thought that was a really, really good thing Becky did. She's like, we're going to spend 10 minutes teaching everyone how to use Zoom, how the chat works, how to, clap your hands, just all that stuff, right? And also for the presenters, my family, we did an offline training session on how the mechanics behind Zoom and how to take control of the meetings.
How to host a meeting, right? So anyone you're using to kind of help lead it, you have to kind of train to make sure they know how to do the hosting and how to share their screen and things like that.
Okay, see that's fantastic. And all of this information, the agenda that will be shared, as well as tons of different ways to connect. And something that I think is interesting is, so you did this and you put all this effort into it. Tell us about an outcome that you found beneficial from everything. Mike, let's go to you.
Well, again, one of the things I love most about the reunion is just sitting around and talking. It's not the planned stuff so much. And so I was a little worried about what that was going to look like. So several times throughout the day, we had these kind of we started out with icebreaker chat sessions, but then we did later in the day, we did a ladies chat, men's chat, where just the women did a chat room and just the men did. And through the whole thing, from the very beginning where we did here's what's been going on in our lives, through all these little things, by the end of the day, you really actually did feel like you had reconnected with all these people, right? Like I felt, even though we weren't physically there, I felt reconnected, and there was one thing that I just still missed, which was the kind of the cousin chat. And so at the end of the day,
your cousins,
right?
Okay.
My generation cousin was hanging out, right? So Becky, do you want to talk about what we did with the cousin chat?
Yeah. So one of our cousins suggested, can we just have a cousin chat after it's over? And I was like, yeah, of course. So after it officially was over, some of us just hung around on the Zoom call, and it was just amazing. It was just awesome. And she started off the conversation with, tell us something that's been going good in your life and tell us a challenge. It's a simple question, but it really just opened up a wonderful sharing of what we've been going through in our lives, and especially as a result of the pandemic. And so I think it was just really critical for our family and for us to connect in that way, even though everything was, I'm just really glad we did it and that we made the efforts to connect, even though it was virtually, because it gave us this opportunity to have conversation that was really important and helped validate the hard things each of us are going through.
Right. And we made a rule, no parents.
I love that. At our age, no parents.
Right. And it's not because we wanted to, it's just we wanted to have a very open conversation.
Yes.
And, your parents care about you. And so if they find out something, then they want to respond to that. And there's a time and place for that. But this was just an honest conversation with 20 cousins. There were some of our spouses that were invited in. but people were talking about the challenges with their teenage children and even some with their marriages and
mental illness,
and
Wow.
all kinds of stuff, right? And I had never really had a group chat like that at a physical reunion, but for some reason, doing it online,
People
I don't know,
opened up.
it was super
Raw.
powerful. It just was really, people were being very authentic and very open, and you could tell there was like people wanted to talk. Right? And how long did that go, Becky? It seemed like
at least an hour.
Yeah, it was, and it was just real and authentic, and it was like everything earlier in the day had led up to that moment. We could not have started with that, right?
Wow. Yeah, you couldn't have jumped into that conversation. So you had talked about one of your cousins that shared and that something happened because of this. Will you tell us that story?
Yeah, she was just talking about some of the challenges in her family, and she's recently become a single parent, and just things that were going on. And so, again, really kind of connecting and hearing and listening and crying with them and all that, just it strengthened that bond. And what's interesting is, so that was in what we had the reunion in, was it August, Becky?
Beginning of August.
So just right before Thanksgiving, another one of my sisters sent me a message that this cousin who lives locally all of a sudden had to move and was going to be changing houses. And she kind of just did this rally call to all the cousins that here locally that come help this cousin move. We need to get her in and out into this new house just like really quickly. And so the day the move came, and I think partly, I talked to my cousin about this before this chat to get her permission to share the story, but partly I think because we had all really kind of connected through that Zoom meeting, there was a lot of family that showed up for that move. And she was moved in like in an hour. Everything was in the house. And then her family, her immediate family, her cousin family stayed around and completely unpacked her in a couple hours. Her whole house was set up for Thanksgiving in a few hours. And
wow. I mean, I'm feeling that.
It's just super, I think the reunion really did kind of set that, helped. People would have shown up. There's no question, right? But just the commitment to each other had increased because of that. And so I'm a big fan of these kinds of things because you don't have to let a pandemic stop you from connecting with family, right?
Right.
And if you have wonderful, innovative people like my sister Rebecca here who kind of really pushed this through, and there were moments in the planning committees where like, oh, is this going to work? But she pushed it and we made it work, and there was just so many great results that came out of it.
Is there anything else, Rebecca, before we wrap up, that you would like to add to anyone who's interested in kind of creating an experience like this for their family? What's your go forward plan?
Yeah, I would just say, don't be afraid. Like it's possible, and you really can connect. You can connect. You can have relationships strengthened over a computer, which is crazy. I never would have thought that, but I know it because I felt it, and we can give and share love and strengthen our relationships in this way. It's possible.
Okay, Rebecca and Mike, thank you so much. And everyone participating, we champion you moving forward with reunion in person or virtually, however you make it happen. Connecting with family is always worth the time.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks, everybody.